Inside Amazon, the manager behind a $9.4 million fraud scheme. At first glance, this didn't look like a traditional theft case. There was no masked robbery, no late-night break-in, and no getaway driver waiting outside. According to federal prosecutors, this scheme happened inside Amazon's own system, where a warehouse manager allegedly used fake vendors, false invoices, and insider access to siphon off nearly $9.4 million before the money was traced to luxury cars, jewelry, and a $1 million home. Kyrika Wortham was an Amazon operations manager working in Smyrna, Georgia. In June 2023, she was sentenced to 16 years in federal prison for her role in a fraud scheme that prosecutors said ripped off Amazon for roughly $9.4 million. But the number alone does not explain what made this case stand out. What made it stand out was the way the scheme allegedly operated from the inside. According to the case summary, the fraud ran from August 2020 through March 2022. Investigators said Wortham directed subordinates to enter fake vendor information into Amazon's system, approve those vendors, and then submitted invoices for services that were never actually provided. The payments never made it to legitimate businesses doing real work. Prosecutors say the money was funneled into accounts controlled by Wortham and people tied to her. And that right there is what makes this story different from the usual retail theft headline. This was not someone sneaking merchandise out a side door. This was a fraud built around trust, access, and internal authority. The person allegedly at the center of it did not need to defeat Amazon's system from the outside. Investigators say she learned how to use it from the inside. Federal investigators said Wortham did not work alone. The case notes identify Brittany Hudson as her partner and a major participant in the fake invoice scheme. Demetrius Hines, an Amazon loss prevention employee, was accused of supplying stolen personal information to help create fake vendor accounts. LaQuetia Blanchard, an HR assistant, was also accused of helping obtain identities used in the fraud. What prosecutors described was not one dishonest employee making a bad decision. It was an organized group with different people playing different roles. For a while, the operation appeared to work. But fraud on this scale leaves a trail, and in this case, investigators said one of the biggest red flags was not hidden in a computer log. It was visible in real life. Sudden luxury spending began to stand out. According to the case notes, the proceeds were used for a nearly $1 million home in Smyrna. Expensive jewelry, high-end motorcycles, and luxury vehicles that included a Lamborghini, a Tesla, and a Porsche. The notes also describe how the scheme exposed a deeper weakness. Wortham allegedly had the power to both approve new vendors and approve their invoices. That lack of separation created an opening big enough for millions of dollars to move without the kind of checks that should have stopped it. And with an insider from loss prevention allegedly feeding information into the scheme, investigators believe the group was able to keep the fraud going far longer than it should have. By the time the case caught up with them, federal authorities had seized more than $3 million in cash and property to the notes. The forfeitures reportedly included a Smyrna home purchased with fraudulent proceeds, luxury vehicles, bank funds, a Rolex, and other jewelry. Those details matter because they help explain how investigators built the case. This was not just a paper fraud. Prosecutors say the money showed up in assets people could see, count, photograph, and seize. Then the case took an even stranger turn. While out on bond and awaiting sentencing, Wortham and Brittany Hudson allegedly tried to open a hookah lounge in Midtown Atlanta. When the franchising company discovered their pending charges, the notes say the pair responded with forged court documents claiming the cases had been dismissed. And here's where it gets real weird and flat-out stupid. Those documents allegedly included the forged signature of a federal judge. If the fraud case was already bold, this second chapter made it look even more reckless. Wortham pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud in November 2022. She was later sentenced to 16 years in federal prison and ordered to pay more than $9.4 million in restitution to Amazon. But the broader story did not end there. According to prosecutors, this was not a one-person scheme. Other defendants were also pulled into the case as the investigation moved forward. In March 2026, Brittany Hudson was convicted on 30 counts, and several other co-conspirators faced guilty pleas, sentencing, or other related proceedings. What this case really exposed was how a modern company can be vulnerable not only to outside thieves, but to people inside the system who understand where controls are weak and how money moves. Prosecutors described a fraud that blended fake vendors, stolen identities, insider knowledge, and lifestyle spending into a scheme that lasted for months. It was not random. It was structured. And that structure is exactly what made it so expensive. On paper, this was a vendor fraud case. In practice, it was a story about access, greed, and the moment investigators say an internal system was turned against the company it was supposed to protect. And even after the guilty plea and prison sentence, the fallout kept spreading through co-defendants, forfeitures, and forgery allegations that made one thing clear: this was never a one-person mess. It was a full operation.